Welcome to Crimson Engine. My name is 𝙎𝙖𝙇 and today we are talking Canon's latest rumored cinema camera, the R5C. So this guy here is the Canon R5. It is a stills camera that shoots ridiculously good 8K video. If you want an 8K raw video camera, you have to go to one of the $50,000 plus Red cameras, or the Alexa 65, which you can't buy, you can only rent. And this little guy gives it to you for about $4,000. It has incredible autofocus, which neither of those other cameras have. And it also takes amazing stills. So what's wrong with this? Why does Canon want to update it? Well, there's a little bit of an overheating problem. The R5 shoots such great raw video that after about 2 or 3 minutes of recording, it overheats. It does shoot a 4K 𝙁𝙄𝙇𝙈𝙆𝙎, which is actually pretty good, but it is very processor intensive to edit. And even my pretty spec'd iMac has trouble with it. Edits the 8K RAW just fine. When this camera came out, a lot of people that bought the camera were annoyed to find that a feature that they were promised, they couldn't actually get, or at least to use it in the way that they wanted to, which was long run 8K clips. Canon had another big problem with chip shortages last year. If you are living under a rock, unfortunately, a whole bunch of things like a drought in Taiwan, a shipping container shortage, as well as the price of Bitcoin, which has increased the demand for Bitcoin miners, had sent the price of computer chips skyrocketing and meant that even when Canon announced and released the R3, they couldn't deliver those new cameras for up to 6 months after people ordered them, which led to more frustrations and canceled pre-orders. I think Canon probably realized that they had a whole bunch of unsold R5s sitting around, and rather than try and release a new camera and order new chips, they could simply repurpose the existing units that hadn't sold with a fan and call it the R5C and remove the timing limit. This isn't that surprising because Tilta actually have a R5 cage mod with a fan available that makes the camera a little bit wider and cools it down and allows it to film longer. This is a total, third-party modification, so of course it wasn't as efficient as what Canon were able to do themselves, but at least it proved the purpose and market for a supercharged R5 and R5C. We'll know in about a week or two what the actual specs of the R5C are, but we're pretty sure that it will not have inbuilt ND, neutral density. It won't have XLR. It will have the R3's new super hot shoe, which allows you to power video accessories like a mic from the hot shoe itself, which is pretty fun. Even though the battery life on this guy isn't phenomenal, it's still the very small LP series batteries, so you probably want to find an external power supply. Where does this R5C sit in the Canon hierarchy of cinema cameras? Is it right at the bottom, underneath the C70? Probably not. It'll probably sit alongside the C70 at about $5,000. And it will aim to capture the photographers moving into cinema or people that want a second camera for their C70 or C300 Mark III that can also shoot stills. There's still a lot of debate whether or not the R5C is going to be able to shoot C-Log2 instead of the C-Log3 and Canon RAW Lite that the R5 does. My personal guess would be no, because it's using the same sensor as the R5, and that sensor's maximum dynamic range is C-Log3, which is a couple stops less than C-Log2, but it is much more usable than C-Log2, because C-Log2 has those extra stops at the bottom, but they're super grainy. You need to reduce to denoise them in post, which is not something that most new cinematographers who are getting up to speed with cinema want to do. They want to have something that they can use and throw a LUT on and grade right out of the camera. Canon's also removing the 29-minute recording limit for the 𝙁𝙄𝙁𝙈. That is something to do with the EU tax status. Cinema cameras or video cameras are taxed higher than stills cameras, and a video camera is defined at anything that can record longer than 30 minutes. So that's why the inbuilt limitation on the R5 exists that will be overcome in the R5C. The last spec it's going to get is a full-size HDMI port, which, you know, is useful. It's one less adapter or one less specialized cable you have to carry around. But it's none of those things are really enough to probably have R5 owners sell their cameras and buy the R5C. It's mainly going to be people who didn't want to buy the R5 because of the recording limitations and are now going to get into that market for slightly more than the R5. The R5 will probably come down in price by about $500 or $700. So you will be paying a premium for the R5C, but not much of one. My own experience is that I've owned the R5 for about a year now and really love it. Have never had issues with it overheating in a way that stopped me shooting, mainly because I already own the C70 and the C500 Mark II, and so that's what I do my long form shooting with. I use the R5 for travel style establishing shots, for gimbal shots, for car rig shots, and all of these things are well under 2 minutes. I don't use it to record long form, mainly also because it doesn't have timecode in, so I can't sync it with other cameras that easily. It doesn't have good audio in with just the with out of balance XLR. And the R5C isn't going to change that. It is a lot more cumbersome to operate than the C70 because the C70 has dedicated buttons for the waveform monitor, for the audio displays, for the displays on and off. Whereas the R5, being a mirrorless stills camera, you have to go down into the menus to do all of those things. Whereas the C70 and C300 Mark III, C500 Mark II, C200 have far more dedicated buttons because they have much larger bodies to be able to access all those things quickly. This is not going to be a pro cinema camera. It's going to be wedging itself increasingly in that small little space between a stills camera that records good video and a dedicated video camera. That said, I think it will do great for Canon. Professional photography really continues to suffer as an industry as more and more people buy their own cameras and take photos on their iPhone, and most of the photographers I know are also needing to go into video in order to survive in that business. And so the R5C offers a way for them to upgrade their stills camera and get a world-class video camera for essentially a few $100s more. If you're interested in any of the cameras that I'm talking about, check out CanonMasterclass.com. I have a ton of camera courses up there that can get you up to speed and shooting with whatever camera you have. There's also a ton of other courses there, including an interview masterclass, outdoor lighting, how to run a production company, how to rig your camera for cinema, and lots more. You can buy the courses individually, or you can stream the entire site for just $14 a month. I will have an update once the R5C is actually released, and hopefully a review and a camera course shortly afterwards. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you next time.